Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the Backyard Gardens podcast.
If you like what we're doing and you want to continue to support the podcast, head over to our Patreon page to sign up.
You can also make a one-time donation using PayPal. Both of these links are in the description.
With your support, we can continue growing and helping others in their gardens. See ya.
If you are lucky enough to have your garden cooling down right now, and if you are blessed enough to have a fall garden going, should you be watering your garden just as much as you were a month ago? Right here on the Backyard Gardens podcast, Minisode.
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
Welcome to the Backyard Gardens podcast, where we talk about all things gardening and give the information out for you to be successful in your garden, whether it's your first or your last. We are your hosts, Ben, the backyard gardener, and
Batavia, the front yard gardener.
one in the country,
One in the city.
Now get ready as we dig deep into this wonderful world of gardening, as we learn to grow and grow for change. How much you water in your garden now?
Not a whole lot. The rain's starting to pick up. So maybe once a week now.
You really gonna start this episode off with that?
What?
With the whole left turn of this whole thing? Is that right there? I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it. The rain.
Oh, well, you're welcome.
Yeah, because I just, yeah, wow. You surprise me more times than not, Batavia. I tell you what.
That's why I'm here, man. That's why I'm here.
We are connected. I tell you that.
What about you?
Oh yeah, I'm still watering a lot because it's hot, you know.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I said if in the intro, because if it's still hot like this, you're gonna have to just come back and listen to this in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, and you know, Batavia, you hit it on a good point right away. Is the fall rains? Didn't even think about that. Mm-hmm. So
so we're right before. I think this comes out just before fall, like literally the day before fall starts. And for me, and I think in the Midwest in general, when September comes around, we know that the seasons are changing.
yeah.
So, you know, the nighttime temperatures are much lower. And by much lower, I mean, like, we're probably going to be like in the 60s now as a pretty constant thing overnight versus like waking up and it's already 75 or 80, you know, as soon as, you know, you wake up. We'll still get some warm days. Don't get me wrong. Right. But air is cooler. Sun is lower. We're getting a little bit more rain. So we do have things depending on where your garden is as far as the stage. If your summer garden is finishing out, some of those things don't need as much water. Right. Let's just talk about vegetables that you're rounding out and almost done with.
Yeah.
If you have your fall garden planted, I am babying that a little bit more. So I'm spot watering. How about that?
Well,
I'm not doing like a full garden water as much as I did like a month ago, 2 months ago.
Yeah. I'll say this about fall gardening and watering is fall gardens typically do need more water, because those plants are very, like lettuce leaves and stuff like that. A lot of it's water content. So, but even still, if you were to water that in the summertime, let's just say in a perfect world that you were able to grow these crops in the middle of summer, you'd have to water 2-3 times a day, I bet, to keep them going. And, a
day?
Well, it's here, yeah. So, I mean, if you think about it, I've seen like my lettuce, because I'll plant it around now. I will plant it, which when I say now is the time this airs. Obviously, this is a little bit before we air, but I will plant it and then it will wilt if I don't keep it watered. So sometimes I have to hit it with a watering can in the middle of the day or something just to keep it going. And I'm not underwatering. It's just it has a lot of water content and it's still really warm. But once that temperature drops, man, you lose that evaporation. Stuff holds on to it. It stays darker longer. And I think that's really a good reason why we have a lot of people have success with fall gardens and spring gardens alike. And I think after this year, that's a lot of it has to do with watering.
So a spring garden and a fall garden, we always talk about it's alike because you grow a lot of the same things. Mm-hmm. But if you've had a true winter, meaning you've probably even had snow, your spring garden, the actual garden itself, the soil, is a lot more damp once you get out there and planting, right? So there's a lot more moisture in there. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I'm going to say maybe I watered in the spring once every 10 days, maybe, right? If it may have even been a longer stretch than that. And we're talking like your April, very beginning of May. And so then by then things are picking up like a normal pace. So in the heat of the summer, I'm watering twice a week, right?
That's it?
And then once we get back, that's it, twice a week. Last year was more like once a week. I was doing a deep water by hand. This year I have the sprinkler set to twice a week.
Damn.
And so I guess twice a week, like every 3 days. Yeah, twice a week. So then you go into fall and I'm absolutely spot watering and I'm probably backing off of my full garden back to like maybe once a week. So once every 7 days versus like before it was once every 10 days or more. And in the middle, it was twice a week or whatever. But I am absolutely like my young seedlings and things. I'm coming around and keeping those moist a few times a week just because they're at such a young stage and the weather is still warm enough for them to be harmed if they don't get enough water.
So I water my garden. It's supposed to go every other day. And sometimes I have to water every day. Mm-hmm. That's how much difference we are here. So yeah, it's a lot more. And I mean, it's just, and I don't just do it because I do it because I look at it, I'm like, damn, the soil's dry, So, and that's the big thing right now is go out and check your soil, keep an eye on it. Don't just get stuck in that mindset
schedule.
The schedule. Thank you. Just setting a habit, just go out there and check and keep an eye on it because once you start getting into those 60, 50 degree nights, man, I think last fall in the month of November, I remember I only had to water my garden once, one time, but my greenhouse, I had to water it like every other day because it was still getting warm and stuff was still, it was eating it up and growing. And so it's crazy. It's a big difference though.
Absolutely. And I mean, you can overwater, so I mean, that's why we're talking about it. You want to make sure that you don't come out and some seedling, in September is dried up. And that's not, I mean, there's no bounce back in a lot of those cases, like you're done with that particular plant. But you can absolutely overwatering some of your newer seedlings. I mean, I think that the damage to like some of the older plants, it's probably not as much. Maybe if you're overwatering, you could experience some cracking in some tomatoes if you still have them on plants. I think it's just time and waste potential, that you're managing against now.
Yeah.
Don't do it if you don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I always look for a reason to turn off the water. I'm always like, oh, it's going to rain? All right, let me turn it off. Always looking for a reason because, even though we want our stuff to grow, I want to be as conscientious about... Yeah, you get what I'm saying. About how much water I'm using and how much resources I'm using in general for my garden because the whole point is not to just scorch earth it and just do whatever the hell you want and say, screw it as long as I get my food. The whole point, at least for me, is to grow in harmony with everything else.
Absolutely.
And I hate that word harmony. It makes me sick, but
I love it.
Do you? Mm-hmm. But it just allows you to kind of set that goal and then be in it because like we've said before, you're literally growing an ecosystem out in your yard. Mm-hmm. That's what you have. So you're going to have animals that take refuge in there. And, that's important. And over and underwatering is a real issue. But I will say this, if you're not in a container and it is an open yard garden, it is harder to overwater.
Correct. Yeah, because there's a lot of built-in drainage with a lot of our kind of in-ground garden beds and such. I know, if you came into the season and you had a drainage issue, it's not going to be eliminated now, don't get us wrong. But I do want to just comment on if you have like a bird bath or something, don't forget about the birdies. Continue to, if you're putting fresh water in it like I do, continue to do that. I know that you're doing a lot of things less frequently in the garden, but let's continue to support them.
Screw those birds. I'm just joking.
Yeah, I saw the look on your face. I knew you were going to be.
No, and I mean, even if you don't want to give the birds water, just remember that the butterflies also use that bird bath to get water. And our gardens are filled with butterflies. If you have any kind of flower, I'm sure you're noticing more and more butterflies in your yard each year. Yeah. And it's amazing. And you want to make that habitat for them. And, you know, this is the time of year when things are migrating and they're using water and all that stuff. And it's generally a more lush time of year. And I think it's, you know, I know everybody's talking about global warming and all that stuff, and we're going to act like it's not happening here for this conversation. But you can grow, you know, in the fall, the planet seems to replenish the water that it's wasted in this, it's lost in the summer through fall rains and spring rains and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a nice round point for the episode.
Yeah. So just keep an eye on what your garden needs. Just get out of that habit. I think that's the moral of the story today.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're making a mental note as well, especially if you're newer. Like for me, this is like my third real year that I've tried. This would be the second year that I'll be successful for a fall garden. You're starting to build your knowledge on what your garden needs this time of the year as well. Right. So I'm going to adjust my sprinkler setting if I'm still going to continue using it, because I may end up, you know, just based on the time frame and what plants are left, I could just be doing some hand watering. Who knows? Yeah.
And I mean, the thing is too, I know if you're growing, you know, when your first year is of fall gardening, you have a million questions, but just remember, each year you do it, you get this knowledge and you can pull from your memory bank. So, and especially each year you do it in where you live. Yeah. So watering is a key piece, but it's actually a pretty easy piece to kind of just to kind of wrap your head around, you know, and once it cools off, just remember, let me check my watering. That's all you got to do is check.
Yeah. Put your fingers in the dirt. If you ever have trouble with watering indoor plants, it's actually a lot easier to water things outdoors because nature does a lot of the work for you, from watering, from, you know, retaining water. You know, you don't have to worry about those.
Yes.
You know, like that you do indoors when you overwater.
It's funny when I harden off my seedlings, all the gnats go away.
Oh, that's a good day.
Yeah,
that's a good day.
It is a good day.
Well, and then what else you're going to do with that soil? I mean, obviously, if you have an empty bed, you want to make sure you're not, if you have a sprinkler or something or irrigation set up, you want to make sure you're not watering that. While you don't want the soil to be completely dried out, I think fall rain is going to do what it needs to do. You just don't want to be working in a bed that's, you know, like if you're amending it, that's going to be soaking wet or anything.
Right.
So give the water to what it needs and no more.
Yeah, hold back on some areas. So that is your tip to get you through this week. And I think that if you manage your water and you focus on it, I believe that you will see better results in your gardens overall, because a lot of overwatering and underwatering effects are the same, you know, lack of growth. You know, you'll see right now if you're overwatering, which is what we're going to kind of focus on for this portion, is you're going to see yellowing leaves. You'll see poor growth, and you can even see drooping, because what you have is root rot setting in and the roots are rotting.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if you haven't had issues with those things throughout the summer, then you probably are overwatering versus it being a drainage issue.
Yeah.
Because if it was a drainage issue, it would have presented itself earlier in the season.
Yeah. And I don't know I guess if you have an in-ground bed, you could think about if I need to add drainage, like if you had clay soil or something. But overall, if you have a raised bed, you should be pretty good on the drainage. You know what I mean? I would not go into adding sand or anything like that. I mean, this time of year, it is very common in the cooler months to not water for a week or two at a time. And, you know, just keep an eye on it.
I mean, things like if you put your hand in and it's muddy, then you got an issue.
Yeah.
You know, like you had to have been watering for hours and hours and hours to create that scenario. You know, just naturally, chances are you have a drainage issue, which again, you wouldn't be discovering this for the first time in the fall. So chances are you're not experiencing that.
Are you trying to bring up the time I left my sprinkler on for 8 hours straight? I hate that happens, but that happened.
Listen. Or the time that the timer went off, but I didn't have the hose connected to it.
Yeah.
So it was just water that was like...
Oh, yeah, that happened to me 3 times this year. We won't talk about that either. Yeah, that was a waste. So these are all things. But on that note, we have 10 seconds left. So
see ya.
A lot of y'all asked, how can you help support the Backyard Gardens podcast? Well, we have been busy and we have created a t-shirt line just for the gardener.
To visit our shop, go to the link in the show notes and check out the t-shirts and other goodies we have.
Now, these are super special t-shirts designed just for the gardener. So enjoy. Thank you for supporting the Backyard Gardens podcast, and we'll see you guys after the harvest. Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you want to see what we're up to or just stay up to date on all the announcements regarding the show or anything gardening, then you can follow us on Instagram at Backyard Gardens TV.
We love seeing what you guys are doing, so use hashtag BYG podcast in your posts, and we'll be sharing your gardens with the Backyard Gardens community.
And check us out on YouTube at Backyard Gardens, where we will post this show, all of our other shows, clips, and then also some gardening tips and just gardening entertainment. And you can see us at our website at backyardgardenstv.com. But that's it for today's show. So help us as we learn to grow and grow for change. And until next time, we'll catch you guys later. We'll call this one a wrap.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.